going to be by Prashant Goyal from IIT Delhi on global attractor for weakly damped forced MKTV equation in low regularity spaces. So let me hand it over to Prashant Goyal.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good afternoon to all. And I would like to thank the organizer for giving me this opportunity. So the title for today's talk is Global Attractor for Weakly Damped Forced MKTV Equation in Low Regularity Spaces. So in this talk, first of all, I will describe what is a global attractor briefly. Then we introduce the problem and the MKD equation as well as the known results with some notation, and then I give a brief summary about all proofs. All right, let's start with the definition of semi group. A collection of operator ST for t greater than 0, greater than equals to 0 is said to be semi group if it maps the phase space H to itself. So basically, for our convenience, the semi group we consider is the generated. It is generated by the solutions of ODEs and PDEs. So basically, this is the definition of trajectories. That is, if you consider a point u naught, then the orbit or trajectory starting at u naught is defined by this. The next definition is for every bounded set V, there exists a T such that this set is relatively compact in H. In other words, the operator ST are relatively compact for T large. Now we define the omega limit set of U naught. That is, if you consider a point in the phase space H, or if we consider a set A in H, that is a subset of H, then the omega limit set point of this point U naught or the set A is defined as this. We say that X contained in H is positively invariant if it satisfies this property. Okay. So this is about the absorbing set. Let B be a subset of H and U an open set containing B. We say that B is absorbing in U if the orbit of any bounded set of U enters in B. That means after a certain point of time, this set is actually contained in B. Now let's come to the definition of attractor, which depends on the definitions which we have done. An attractor is a set A contained in H that enjoys the following properties. A is an invariant set, that is ST of A is equals to A. A possesses an open neighborhood U such that every U naught belongs to U. ST of U naught converges to A as T tends to infinity. All right. So what is the global attractor? Global attractor is something like a set A contained in H for the semigroup ST. Okay. If A is a compact attractor that attracts the bounded sets of H. Now let's say the main theorem which we are going to use from this theory in our problem. That is, let H be a Banach space. For T large, we divide the semigroup ST into two operators, that is L1T plus L2T, where the operator L1 are uniformly compact for T large and L2 is continuous mapping from H into itself, such that every bounded set C contained in H, if we define this property, it tends to 0. We also assume that there exists an open set U and a bounded set B of U such that B is absorbing in U. Then the omega limit set B is actually maximal compact operator, that is global attractor, which attracts the bounded sets in B. All right. We consider the modified KdV equation, which is defined as delta Tu plus del x cube U plus minus 2 del x U cube plus gamma U is equals to F. So this is MKTV equation with damping and forcing term, where damping term is gamma and damping constant is gamma and forcing term is F, where F is coming from H1. Here we are assuming T is greater than 0 and X is coming from one-dimensional torus. This is our initial data which is coming from homogeneous Sobolev spaces. Okay. Miura in his theory have given a Miura transformation which actually converts the solutions of MKDV equation into KDV equation. And hence we can, from inverse transformation, we can say that we can, if we know the solution of KDV, we can get the properties of solutions of MKDV equation. That's why KDV equation is extensively studied, although there is not much studies about MKDV equation. Now what's the issue? The issue comes when we add the damping and forcing term in the MKDV equation. When we add the damping and forcing term in MKDV equation, the actual Miura transformation does not work here. That's why we have to consider this problem separately. Yeah. For global solution of MKDV equation, the I team, mainly known as CKSQT in 2003, has shown that MKDV equation has global solution for s greater than equals to half using Miura transformation actually. Now, these three authors in 2009 use the energy method for Ux and Uxx, that is first energy and second energy method, to show that there exists a global attractor in H2 space. From the articles of Gidalgia, we can show that directly that there exists a global attractor for s greater than equals to 1. 2 years back, I have shown that there exists a global attractor for s greater than 11 by 12. That is, there exists a global attractor of MKDV equation below energy space. Now, this problem is actually about when your s lies between 9 by 10 to 1. If you consider initial data U naught in HS, then ST is, if you consider semi-group solution of MKDV equation, then there exists the operators L1 and L2 which satisfies the following properties with this constant depending on these terms. All right. So if we show this theorem, from the theorem of global attractor, we can show that there exists a global attractor for s greater than 9 by 10, because again we are actually splitting the semi-group into two operators having both the properties as given in theorem 9. Let's see the notations which have been used in this article. So basically C and C are various time independent constant, and A plus A minus means A plus epsilon and A minus epsilon for a very small epsilon greater than 0. A less than equivalent to B means A is less than equals to CB, where C is some positive constant, and A equivalent to B means A is less than equivalent to B and B is greater than B is actually less than equivalent to A. Sorry for that mistake. Okay. So now we define the space XSP, mainly known as Borgen space, as this quantity. So this is basically L2 norm with some derivatives. Basically derivative in X variable S and in T variable B. So to ensure the continuity of local Velkozness, we are restricting ourselves to some smaller subspaces of this. Now, let's come to the brief summary. So to go for the MKTV equation, the first thing we have to do is renormalize the equation, because there is a big difference between KDV and modified KDV. That is, in KDV equation, the resonant term have integral 0, that is, it has measure 0, but for MKDV equation, the measure is non-zero. That's why we have to consider the non-resonant term separately, and to do that, we have to renormalize the equation again. After renormalizing, to go for the priori estimate, we need to rescale the equation. Then we define the operator I, which is a Fourier multiplier, with the help of Fourier multiplier, and we use the trilinear estimate, which is nothing but the estimate for the non-linearity of MKTV equation. So by using first four quantities, we give the local well-posedness result, and with the help of local well-posedness and bilinear estimate, we give the modified energy, and with all these three combinations, we can get a priori estimate, and hence we can easily prove the theorem there. All right, so this is our actually renormalized modified KdV equation. Okay, so basically we are removing this term, which is the resonant part, and this is a rescaled version of this equation. Now we consider a smooth function phi with this definition, and we define a Fourier multiplier M with this definition. All right, so with the help of this Fourier multiplier, we define the I operator as this one. Now, the trilinear estimate, that is the non-linearity of the equation, which is of order 3, is really important, and it is quite different from KdV equation, as I said, because of the resonant term. So we have actually two quantities, that is, one is resonant quantity and another one is non-resonant quantity, and we have to consider both things separately. So if we consider the Fourier transform of the non-linear term, we can define this as this operator, and for this operator in YS space, we define this, we have proven this trilinear estimate. Now, so the main difference from the earlier proof and this one is this bilinear Stika's estimate. So for n1 and n2 belonging to 2 to power z, with n1 strictly greater than n2 and lambda greater than equals to 1, we define the following. We have proved the following bilinear Stika's estimate, which is actually not a general version of Stika's estimate, a little bit weaker version, but still quite useful for us. So we can also define a kind of corollary for the bilinear Stika's estimate, which is very useful in the bound of multilinear bounds functionals. All right. So this is the result for our local well-posedness result. Local well-posedness in terms of y1 and h1. All right. So this is the definition of multilinear function. Okay. It is just a function. We say that a function is symmetric if I operate any element from the symmetric group of n element, it does not affect the my multilinear. Okay, and hence we can also define the symmetrization of this multilinear variable. All right. Similarly, we define the multilinear functional as defined as this one. So if we make the same copies of this, we just write it at like this. All right. So now let's define the modified energy. So we have already know that there are conservation laws for modified KdV equation. In fact, there are infinitely many conservation laws which have already been proven. So we just consider the E1 and apply the operator I with this. Okay. So this is our first modified energy, which is actually used in earlier proof also. Now, if we use the Plancherel's theorem and Fourier transformation, we can see that we can write it in the form of multilinear functional, which is this one. Okay, where mi is equals mi represents m of ki. Now, consider this operator as your second modified energy, and if we took the derivative of this second modified energy, we get these quantities. So basically, to solve this problem, all we have to do is find a suitable bound for these operators. Now here the things which are unknown for us is M4 and M6. Those multilinear are actually defined as this one. We consider M4 as this one and M6 as this one. So this comes with the condition which we have, which is given actually in the modified energies. All right. So this is the bound for multilinear M4, and this is the bound for multilinear M6. Okay. So basically main growth we are having in the form of M6 only. So if we have M4 bound and M6 bound, we can also get the bound for multilinear functional also. Okay. So for delta 4, we don't have a decay, but for delta 6, we have a decay of order 1. Right. So for our priori estimate, this is an important lemma which we have proven. So basically, this result is in the form of H1. And it also has a multilinear bound, which we have already shown. It has a decay of order 1, sorry. All right. So this is the priori estimate, which has been proven using the previous lemma. So these two conditions we have assumed, and if we assume those two conditions, we can show that we have following bounds on these two in the form of L2 and H1. Again, we can just rescale this proposition, because after rescaling, doing the proof is quite easy. So that's why we have rescaled this proposition. And if we rescale this proposition, our bounds actually change into this form. Okay. So now let's see how we have proven the theorem. So first of all, because we have not chosen any cutoff for the operator I, so first thing we have to do is we have to choose a suitable cutoff and a time. If we have both of them, we can directly use the priori estimate. After using the priori estimate, we will reach to a bound. We iterate it one time, and if we iterate it, we again have to choose the cutoff and the time. After choosing that, we can again use the priori estimate, and if we use the priori estimate, we can directly get back to the theorem. All right. So now I'm just giving a brief about what is the cutoff and the time we have chosen. So this is the time t1 which we have chosen in the form of exponential of 2 gamma t1. All right. So this is the choice of t1, and this is the choice of n. So for these two choices, we have shown that the proposition, that is a priori estimate is satisfied. So basically these bounds we got directly if we implement the conditions of priori estimate. Now, what is the difference between the two proofs which I have done till now? So basically first proof was for s greater than 11 by 12, and second one is 9 by 10. Although in the sense of bound, there is not big difference, but in the sense of proof, there is lots of differences. So first thing is modified energy of first generation we have used in our first proof, and in the second proof we have used modified energy of second generation. That simply means that if we go beyond two modified energy, that is third generation of modified energy, the system will get more complicated, although it is very unlikely to get a so much better bound. That is, our main aim is to reach up to 1 by 2, but it seems difficult even if we go to level 3 with lots of complications. Second thing, the difference is in the first proof we have used the resonant term, that is the term which does not have measure 0, to find the decay. But in this proof we have not used any resonant term. In fact, we cannot use it. The third difference is in the first proof we have not used any kind of bilinear Stokes estimate, and in this proof we have used the bilinear Stokes estimate. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Prashant Goel.